Welcome everybody to my workshop on mapping out your life path. I think you guys are going to like it. Basically, our goal here is to get you crystal clear on your unique path and become the man that God intends you to be. So if you're struggling with a lack of direction in your life, you're not sure what you should be doing, what you should be focusing on, whatever, this is going to really help you. It's going to help you map out your career, it can help you map out like what habit changes you want to make, all this kind of stuff. I think the lack of focus, lack of clarity is one of the biggest things that holds guys back. They just don't know what they should be doing. And well, I think that if you go through this workshop, you're going to get a ton out of it. I've developed these practices from being 10 years, actually over 10 years now, of being a professional coach, meaning my full-time job is helping guys move from point A to point B. And so I've really learned a lot of tricks along the way and developed some very powerful frameworks that can get you to where you want to go and get you that clarity you need to get there. So, first thing is we got to get ready here. All right, this is a very hands-on workshop. All right, you're going to be doing stuff in this. So when I go through an exercise or whatever, like just pause the video and do it. Okay, I want you to have a place to take some notes, and you want to do these exercises. Actually do them. And if you are struggling to do them, you run into any problems doing them, well then you want to try and connect with me. Like the just comments on the video, like on YouTube or whatever. Probably not the best place for it. If you're in my Telegram group, you DM me in there, that sort of thing, I can definitely offer you a lot more feedback. And well, this is more for the live version of it, but if you were here live, you could raise your hand and I could pause and chat with you. So the goal here is we want to get you to find and play your game, so that you can live the best life possible with the greatest net benefit to the world at large. Because really, if you're not playing your game, then you're not going to be able to really sink your teeth into it, love it, perfect it, and then create the biggest impact, right? Like you got to find what you're made to do. And I believe that God has a very unique plan for you. He made you uniquely. He's got a unique path for you. You just got to find it, and you got to learn how to listen to it. And that's what a lot of this is going to be about, is that like how to actually discover the plan in many ways by looking inside of yourself and understanding you. So I'll give you an example of my game. All right? This is something that took me a while to figure out, a lot of iterations. So my game right now is coaching Christian men to extreme high performance. And I do this through coaching guys through the God Mode framework, which you can get more information on in the description here. And I promote it through daily emails, paid advertising, free videos, and workshops like this. All right. Like this might sound, whatever. It's like, okay, cool. You got that. But do you have that? Do you have that kind of clarity? Do you know what your game is? If you don't, well then let's get into it. This is what we got to do. So the big framework here that all of this is built upon, this is the God Mode operating system. And there's a couple big parts of it. And I'm not going to go super deep into it all, but I just want to highlight the main points, all right? We want to define your future self, your ideal future self, the man that you want to be and God wants you to be. And that's where we're trying to go. That's where it's all directed. And we have to learn how to deal with the past self, the person who we have been, all his bad habits, all his baggage, all his limiting beliefs and stuff like that. And to move from this past self, this person we were, to the person we want to be, well, there's going to have to be some sacrifices made. And part of this workshop is really getting clear on what that's going to be all directed toward. Okay. Now, in order to figure this out, one of the big problems is making decisions, figuring out like where do we go next? Where do we point our attention? Where do we point our energy? And this is where having instinct and intellect in alignment is key. All right. So instinct is that emotional aspect of yourself. Intellect is like your, prefrontal cortex, your rationality. And when these two are in balance, we experience resonance. Okay, this is the key. We want to find that feeling of click, of like, ooh, that's right. And to get that feeling of click, we need to get both our emotional aspect governed by our limbic system in our brain and our rational aspect tied to our prefrontal cortex in agreement. And when we get that agreement, ooh, we feel it. It's a click. That's what resonance is. And that's what I want you to be paying attention to during this process, because we don't want you to be just operating all from rationality. That's going to come out as feeling like, oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should do this. That's that means that your emotionality is not really there. It's just all up here. And if we're just moving from your head, you're always going to get stuck, because really it's the emotional part of yourself that's doing the heavy lifting. And, we want to make sure too that we're not just too much on the instinctual side, just doing what I want, because, our emotions aren't necessarily the smartest. Sometimes they pick self-limiting paths or self-destructive paths even. It needs to be properly tempered by our intellect. So if we can get these pieces in alignment, we're going to be able to make great progress. Now, in this triangle here, you see it in the middle, that's where we find the map, okay? The God mode map. This is like how we really play things out, okay? So the map is comprised of three main pieces here. We've got the man that you're meant to be, the aims you wish to accomplish, and then the price of transformation, okay? Now, during this, we are going to be focusing on just mostly the man aspect and the aim aspect. And so really we're covering the callings and style, and then HCG, target resonance, and goals. So these are all things which you can, we'll talk about in more detail here, but there's more to this whole thing. Now, before we get into like the nitty-gritty of this process, I want to make a couple of points here, all right? Big idea is that it's always going to be a draft when you're doing this kind of work, all right? Like your understanding of all these pieces that we're going to cover will start out as a rough draft. And really, this draft is going to be something that's always a work in progress. And if you're like, I would want you to work quickly here. Like I could spend a workshop on each one of these exercises, but that's not really useful. We want to get something working here quickly. So just jot down, your thoughts. Don't spend too much time on it. Don't hem and haw on it. Just get it down and you can refine it later. All right. It is right and proper for these things to change and be updated. So don't feel like you need to get everything perfect right now. All right. So that being said, let's jump to the first piece here, understanding your callings. So callings are the things that you feel called to do deep within your heart. And I would say that they're come internally, or they're kind of undeniably put upon you by your circumstances. So what I mean by that is like either you got like a strong yearning inside of yourself for the thing, or just something, you can't deny shows up in your life. Maybe a loved one gets sick and it falls upon you to take care of them. All right. Well, that would still be a calling. Okay. Even if you didn't plan on that, that's still a thing. But for most of us, it's going to be more about looking at that internal, like deep hunger for something. So we'll look at my callings here. I'm a husband, I'm a father, okay? I'm a Christian men's coach, I'm a business owner, and I'm a Girovic. So that's a kettlebell sport practitioner. So that's the sport I practice for, in terms of physical training. And so those are some of my callings. I could also add other stuff on there like friend, a community member, etc. But really, we've all got a handful of these things. Now, some people think that callings are goals. They're not. They're different. Callings are roles. Goals are specific ways of expressing a calling. So for example, a calling for me would be Christian men's coach. A goal would be getting 10 coaching clients, or becoming the top in the niche, or get certified in a specific coaching modality. All right. And we're going to get to the goals, but we need to lay the proper groundwork first. So exercise number 1, my friends, is to list your main callings. That's all you got to do. List them down, kind of like the thing I have here, right? So just do that. Create that, okay? Okay, so many of you are going to have multiple callings. Don't worry about being too specific yet either. So if you're unsure about your career right now, you don't know what your calling really is in career, just make it something, high level, like working professional. All right. If you're unsure, if you feel like a calling around the physical stuff, just put physically fit. You don't know what it is yet. That's fine for right now. We're going to get more clear on them. And so that's the first thing, and that should take you, a minute. Now the second thing is we want to pick your current focus. So we can't, you can work on all of this stuff, but really you're going to see the best results if you really target your focus in improving one calling at a time. Sometimes you're going to be forced to really work in multiple directions at once. And the better you get at this kind of thing, the kind of more you can juggle. But really, even the most competent people are always going to be benefited by being more focused rather than less focused. So what I want you to do for the second exercise is select the calling that you think is most important to upgrade right now. This will be your focus during this workshop. All right. So moving on here, we got to get clearer. Ultimately, we want to get very specific with your callings, but this can be difficult depending on where you're at. And so when they have this kind of uncertainty, we want to strike a balance between certainty and specificity. So certainty would be how confident you are that you're actually being called to said role. Specificity is how clearly defined the role is. So let's break this down a little bit more. All right, we've got two circles here, certainty and specificity. All right, now I have these arrows here to show that it gets usually more specific, this direction. We're narrowing it down over here, and over here where we're super certain about things, it's generally more broad. So let's do an example. All right, maybe you're certain that you're called to be physically fit. A super specific example of this would be to say, I'm called to be a competitive heavyweight powerlifter who practices West Side method and IIFYM. So for those of you who don't know, powerlifting is a sport where you lift heavy things. West Side barbell method is a training modality, and IFYM is a diet modality. It's if it fits your macros. Okay, so that'd be very specific. But maybe, that exists out there. It kind of sounds interesting, but you're not quite certain if that's the thing for you. So if that's the case, you kind of have, certainty over here. I know I need to be physically fit. I'm not certain if I'm called to this specific kind of fitness. Well, we got to find something in the middle. And maybe what that could look like is barbell training and eating 80% whole foods or something like that. Another example, say you're called with certainty to become an IT professional. Okay. A very specific example of this would be freelance back-end web developer with SQL specialization, okay? But maybe you're not certain you want to do that. So what would be kind of a step between IT professional and that very specialized sort of thing? Maybe just computer programmer, all right? So the exercise here is see if you can get clearer on that top priority calling that you selected while balancing certainty with specificity. Just think about it. See if there's any ways in which you can further define this calling that click with you. All right. And if you're having trouble doing that, then this next section will probably help with it. Because now we are moving on to style. Style is very powerful. I found that when I work with guys around this, this is where they find a ton of transformative potential. So style is the unique way you carry out your calling. Many people share the same calling, but they might carry it out in entirely different ways. So for example, all right, two people might share the calling for being a real estate agent, but one person's style might focus on in-person networking and the other one focuses on online advertisement, okay? So discovering your style is the key to loving what you do, doing it at your highest level, and making rapid progress. So we got to discover your style. And in order to do that, we got to identify your superpowers and kryptonite. So your style, understandably, it's guided by your unique strengths and weaknesses. Superpowers, these are the things that you're either extremely good at, extremely enjoy, or are extremely interested in. And to be clear here, you don't need to necessarily have all three. Just having one of these things in a specific area would make it count as a superpower. Okay. So, you could be extremely good at something, but not super interested in it. It would still be a superpower because that's an asset in your process here. And so we want to get the superpowers nailed down. And then we want to also identify what's your kryptonite. These are the things that you're either extremely bad at, extremely dislike, or are extremely disinterested in, okay? So pretty straightforward. Now, a note about this is that sometimes you're going to find yourself in a situation where you're extremely bad at something, but you're extremely interested in it. So what should you do? Should you list that as a kryptonite or a superpower? You should list it as a superpower, because passion, it allows you to do very interesting things. It allows you to, one, get a lot better at it, but also it helps you direct things. So even if you're bad at something to begin with, you can get better at it. But also, maybe if you don't even get good at the thing, you might find an adjacent way to interact with it. So for example, say, you got a guy who's short and got no vertical jump, but he's incredibly interested in basketball. All right. Well, and he's bad at it though. He's just not good at it, but he loves it. Okay. In his case, that love of basketball, that wouldn't be kryptonite because he's bad at it. It would be a superpower, because maybe, he becomes a coach, a basketball coach. Maybe he becomes a basketball analyst. Maybe he works on a basketball team, whatever it is. Like, see, it's definitely something we want to still count in the superpower category. So, next exercise, lay out your superpowers and kryptonite. So for your chosen calling, do that. And while you're doing this, it can be useful to think about like what sort of natural advantages and disadvantages you'll want to navigate around. And so this can be found by paying attention to like the aversions and the interests that pop up within you when thinking about it. So some stuff to get you thinking. All right. Maybe we've got things like communication preferences. Like, are you someone who likes to work by yourself? Do you like to work with others? Do you like public speaking? Do you hate public speaking? If that's relevant to your calling, put that in there. All right. Do you like to be the boss, or do you like to be told what to do? Do you have any unique interests and aversions and things like that? Any populations you care about, tools you are fascinated with, maybe even just role models you really aspire to or dislike. Think about them and see, what about that resonates with you? What clicks with you? So for me, like my superpowers, like a lot of it's like I like to create content. I love to come up with new ideas. I really like to coach people, and I'm pretty good at all of those things. I'm not so hot at juggling a million different tasks. I don't really I don't like crunching numbers. So it's like, for example, like I kind of actually hate working with numbers in general. So, that's why I understood that, and I realized, what? I can't really run a business and not do numbers well. And so that was part of the reason why I was like, I probably need a partner or someone in here. And so I ended up getting a partner, and he likes numbers. He's much more comfortable with them. He's willing to get in there and fiddle with statistics on ads and things like that and optimize for them. That's Derek, if those of you who are familiar with him, that's one of the things he's really great at. Me, not so much. So understanding that about myself really helped lay out what needed to happen. So next piece here is stylistic lanes. A stylistic lane is the unique method of operating that allows you to do your best work in a way you like most. So you can think of it as combining your superpowers and kryptonite into a workable path. All right? A workable path. So let's look at what this could be. So let's say this is actually a real life example from someone that I met. This guy, he knew he was called to be an entrepreneur. And he was trying to figure out, well, what the heck, what kind of business am I supposed to be in with this? He didn't really know. And so he understood, I really like working with my hands. I really like being outside. And I really like meeting new people. And, I got a good way with people and stuff like that. I like to talk with them, that sort of stuff. But, he didn't like doing the same thing every day. And he also didn't like fixing stuff either. And so what he ended up doing was getting into junk removal. Junk removal was like something that he did. Like, that's actually how I met him, is like hired him to pick up a bunch of stuff from my house that I didn't want to deal with. And like the dude, like, it really captured me because of how passionate he was about what he was doing. He made a great living. He loved what he did. He said it was a little hard when it got cold out, but he didn't mind it. And so the cool thing here is, if you look at it, like junk removal, that actually ended up upgrading and further defining his calling of entrepreneur. And so this is what can happen a lot of times when you are doing this sort of work. you'll find that, oh, actually, I'm called to something more specific here. And that specificity is very useful. A couple examples from my own life, all right? Like, for those of you who don't know, like in college, I went there for software engineering. And I was frankly not a great software engineer. Like I wasn't the best at the programming. I really sucked at especially the stuff that required a lot of math and that sort of thing. But I had great communication skills, which was something that a lot of people who were in software engineering, they didn't really have. They were much more of like the, computer science type, if you know that type of person. And so what I did with my, initial career path was I targeted positions that required computer science understanding, which I did have, but also relied upon interpersonal skills. And so my stylistic lane, had I stayed in that career path, would have likely been the interface between very techie people and management or customers who didn't speak techie language, because I could understand the technology enough, but I could also communicate it either way. And so that was, a stylistic lane that had I stayed in that position, I would have definitely pursued. And then when it came to coaching, when I realized, all right, I wanted to become a coach, well, I knew there was a bunch of different ways I could do it. I could try and become like a Tony Robbins coach. But the thing was, I liked coming up with my own ideas. I liked getting out there and creating my own systems. And so I knew, all right, well, that's my lane. I can't go just use someone else's stuff. I got to make my own. And it helped me really realize, all right, I want to get into content creation. I want to do YouTube, all that kind of stuff. And my technological comfort made that not that big of a deal. If I was someone who barely knew how to work a computer, and I really wanted to become a coach, and I wanted to do a lot of in-person events and that kind of stuff, well then, Tony Robbins would have been the right stylistic lane for me. So you can see how this stuff can really shape which path you end up taking when you take the time to think about it. So that's your exercise now. We want to narrow your lane. So in relation to the expression of your calling, identify the things you absolutely want and the things you absolutely do not want, so you can narrow down the game that you play. This might even help you further define your calling. So go ahead and try and do that. Try and lay that out. Okay. And that should be hopefully fairly clear. So we've got now, we've covered sort of the man section. We've talked about the identity level of this. So with the role, we talked about the man you want to be. That's what your calling and your style is about. Now we got to get clear on what you want to accomplish. And to do this, we're going to move out of the man section and into the aim section of the map. So the first part of this is the HCG. HCG stands for your highest conception of goodness. And many guys, the reason why this is essential here is because many guys operate from a very limited view of what they can accomplish. And the HCG breaks you free from this. So what is HCG? It's basically it's taking anything that you're doing and allowing your mind to imagine what would be the best version of this? What would be the most awesome version of this? And it's allowing yourself to think big, allowing your imagination to run wild. And in a spiritual sense, it's you're allowing the opportunity for God to make something incredible, right? You're not putting predefined limitations on it. So this is really important because a lot of guys, they have this pattern of letting their past determine their future. And so if they keep letting their past determine their future, oh, well, I was this guy who sucked at this and struggled with that, or, would fail to follow through or whatever, they're going to limit what they believe they can accomplish. Okay. And we want to break free from that. They've got limiting beliefs oh, I'm not good at this, or, I'm incompetent at that, or, I can only make so much money, whatever. Then the other big one is thinking that things can't be that good. Some guys just have it in their head that they're just called to suffer in life and to get dealt crappy hand after crappy hand after crappy hand. And if you've had a particularly difficult time in your life up to this point, you might even feel justified in that. But even if that's the way your life has been, doesn't mean that that's the way it has to stay. All right, you got to expand your mind. Imagine if it could be better. And allowing it to exist in your mind is the first step to allowing it to exist in reality. So one of the big things, particularly for those of you who are Christian men out there, that can help solve this is reminding yourself that what you want most is what God wants you to be, what God wants you to pursue. Because God is good. All right, God is actually incredibly good, good beyond our imagination. And he's not cruel. He won't just like fill you with a deep desire that you're not supposed to pursue. He wouldn't just like fill you with a longing to become a musician and tell you that like, no, that's like, you can't pursue that. You're not allowed. Like that's dumb of you to do that. Okay. Maybe the way in which it expresses is not exactly how you think right now. Maybe it doesn't mean you're going to be playing, for millions of fans on a concert stage all the time, but it definitely means that there is a place for music in your life if that fire burns inside of you, if that calling exists inside of you. So it's like we have to realize that God wants you to be the best version of you possible, because he's a master artist and he only creates masterpieces, and you are a unique masterpiece. So own that, take that to heart, and start your thought process from there. So to do this practically, we have to build your HCG vision. We must allow your imagination to expand and imagine what it would look like if you were to be living out your chosen calling at absolute perfection. You can think of this as creating a commercial to motivate yourself to pursue this life. And we want to break it down into what is happening and then how I live. So, for example, all right, we'll do mine as a coach here, okay? And to be clear, like this is, it's an ideal future outcome. That's the HCG vision, not like your ideal outcome for like right now. Like we're aiming for this ideal future. So for me, what would be happening in my ideal future? I'm running a 10-figure coaching business. Okay, my content's reaching millions of people across the world. Like my free content and my really like low price stuff like books and like free guides and stuff like that. Like, that alone is transforming lives. And I don't even need to make a penny off of it. It's just charity. It's just goodness being put out there. And then my paid stuff's doing even more intense, incredible stuff for those who want to invest in it. I got an army of trained coaches helping people use our systems. And I drive a grassroots movement of Christian high performance. So that's what's happening. That's the external reality of what I see in this vision. And that's the first part of this. You want to define, okay, in your HCG vision, what's going on? What's happening around you? What kind of results are you getting? Now, the second piece is you want to look at how you live. All right, so in my vision, how I live is I've mastered leverage and delegation. All right, I'm not just, I'm not spending time doing stuff that other people should be doing. All right, I focus only on what I'm best at. So I get to focus entirely on coaching and content creation. To me, that's my dream, is to be able to just do that stuff and all the nitty gritty business stuff and managing people and all that kind of thing. That's what I can let, other people who love doing that stuff, who that's their HCG vision, they get to do that. And then I've got clearly defined and effective business systems, and I have an awesome balance of deep focused work and playful exploration. So it's like, my vision is like, okay, yeah, I've got my deep work blocks where I'm getting, mission critical stuff completed, but I've also got big chunks of time where I get to explore. I get to, read books. I get to enrich my mind. I get to learn things. I get to play with ideas. I get to daydream, because that's where I know that I'm going to be able to create the best stuff possible. So that's my vision. That's what I want to have happen. And this is all in relation to my calling as a coach. Okay. You can do this vision for, all your callings combined, and that's a very exciting exercise as well. But for now, just try and keep it focused. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I want you to imagine your HCG vision and brainstorm the biggest points under what's happening and how I live from that vision. That's it. So you do pretty much what I did back on the previous page. So once you do that, we move on to target resonance. Okay. Target resonance. For most people, the HCG Vision has like a ton of gaps and uncertainty around it. And this prevents you from providing clear direction. So like the vision that I gave you, that was, that's something I've been working on for years, trying to figure that out. Yours might be very abstract. And if it's too abstract, it's hard to extract useful direction from it. And so we need to find a way to do this. All right. We need a compass that can guide us to the destination. And this compass is target resonance. Target resonance is the imagined feeling of living out your HCG vision. And so the idea is that when you run out of clarity, we can instead follow this feeling. All right. So a lot of times I don't know what to do. All right. I'll have, a general goal, but it's like, shoot, I don't know which path to take, or maybe I don't even have a goal. I don't know what the goal is supposed to be yet. And so I always return to my vision. All right. What calling is this thing related to? Okay. Here's the calling. What's my HCG vision for it? Okay. Here's my vision. What's the resonance of that vision? What does it feel like to live that out? It feels like this. And then when I'm looking at the options around me, I can see what clicks most closely with that feeling. Does it go clunk against the feeling, or does it make that feeling grow and swell? Okay, does it vibrate with it? Does it resonate with it? That's what we use this for. So the exercise here is for you to feel that target resonance. And it's pretty simple. All you need to do is to imagine what it would feel like if you were already living out your HCG vision. And you want to remember this feeling. You want to come back to it as much as possible. I use this constantly. You can use it in a macro sense, like what we're doing here for big Lifepath stuff, but I use it on a micro level all the time. I do it for, I did it right before creating this workshop. I imagine, all right, what's the feeling I want to have at the end of this workshop? What's the feeling that I want to have from the comments and the feedback from it? And so I start there. I hold that energy as I go into it. I use it when I create emails. I think about what's the feeling I want to have at the end of writing this email to my list, or, anything, right? Like new business plan, hiring someone, about to have a tough conversation with someone. I always try and end up like, what's that end feeling I'm looking for? And if you want to make this even more powerful, you want to tap into if you already have the ideal outcome and then mix it with some gratitude. This is, I think, a very profound spiritual principle. It's like this idea of pre-gratitude, of being grateful for the goodness that God is going to give you. And I believe that if you take this seriously, even if you don't get the outcome that you want, if you believe in the goodness of God, you can understand that you actually got something better, that outcome you wanted actually wasn't what was best for you. God has a different plan in store for you that's going to take you somewhere even better. And that's what faith and hope really are about, in my opinion. It's like this ability to trust and be able to be at peace and full of gratitude, even when it seems like the world is melting around you. And this can be very difficult at first, but you'll find out that if you try it, usually you will be able to access it. And it can transform the process of suffering for you, which is a really big deal because, things are going to be hard sometimes. You are going to be pulled out of your comfort zone, sometimes very intensely. And if you can believe that you're still going to be moving towards something fundamentally, ultimately good, then you're going to be good. So, moving on here. Resonant goals. Now it's time to really nail down what you should be working on. This is what the workshop is kind of funneling itself toward. All right. And so what we want to do is essentially construct a main objective. Okay. And that's where we're going to get specific. You need a clear objective that sticks with you both instinctually and intellectually. All right. So this is coming back to that idea of resonance. We don't want, some people, they have the vision, it feels great, but then they start down a path that feels like crap. It just, doesn't click with them. Or maybe it's just they start down the path they think they should do. All right. It's just all mind. And then, they wonder why they don't follow through with it. It's because, you picked a path that wasn't resonant with you. It wasn't emotionally resonant. Or they pick a path that's only emotionally resonant, but if they took 5 seconds to think about it, they'd be able to obviously say, that's not going to work, right? And so obviously that won't work. So we got to find the intersect with these. So some people, they want to do this in a very extremely structured way, and there's value to that, laying it out with like a 10-year vision, a 5-year vision, a year vision, down to the quarter, to the week, to the day, etc. But I think it's best to keep it super clear and flexible and simple, right? And so what we're looking for is something like that's like your first big mental chunk that you can hold on to. You can think of it as like a month to a quarter sized goal. That's usually what's a solid main objective for the next, something that you can aim for within the next 30 to 90 days. And if you really lack specificity, then it might be smaller. It might even be, hey, this is just what I'm working on this week, and then it's going to have to evolve. So let me explain a little bit about what I mean by that. So exercise, specify your first goal. Think about reaching your ideal outcome and identify the first big milestone that you must hit. So for example, like I was just saying there, sometimes it's going to be a shorter term thing. And that's especially true when your first big goal is to gather more specific information. So for example, one of the guys that I've coached recently, he thought he wanted to become a carpenter. He wasn't really certain. He had kind of like, he was like in that, he lacked that certainty aspect. It's like, okay, carpenter would be pretty specific, but I don't really know yet. And so his first big objective was to go out and gather more information. I was like, hey man, we got to go get you talk to people who know what they're doing. So he went around and he, called up carpenters around him. He asked them about like what they liked about the job, what they didn't, how they got into it, all that kind of thing. And so something like that might only be, require a week or two of work, maybe even just a couple of days. But then once you have that, then you want to get that next bigger chunk. So another example for me right now, my big goal is to get 45 men through the new God Mode coaching program. That's what I want to do. It's like very specific and very clear. Maybe for someone else might be look up how to create a business plan, and then they got to make the business plan. Maybe next one would be if they've got a diet goal or something like that. It's like they got to create their weight loss grocery list and schedule meal prep. Maybe they got to create a prototype for a new product. Maybe it's document and systematize current business so you can start scaling. All right, there's all different things. It's all obviously dependent upon what it is you're dealing with. But just get that big goal together. And if you've thought about all of this within the context of what you feel called to do, and then your unique style, you plug it into this HCG Vision, and you feel that feeling that comes from it. You just want to feel like, all right, well, what clicks with that? What resonates with that? What resonates with that target outcome that I'm trying to move toward? All right, it's pretty straightforward stuff. And so when you have this, boom, you should have some clarity. Okay, and if you don't have some clarity, then you can hit me up on Telegram, and I can try and help you out a little bit further. But this is the big starting point, my friends. Now, this obviously isn't the ending point, right? We gotta then act on this thing. We have to bring this thing into reality. And that's where the rest of the work really comes in. All right. So it's like you've got a goal, what's next? So we've covered most of the M and we did all the A, but now it's P, the payment aspect of the map. And this includes you gotta get a plan, or systems. You got to surrender to the process, and you got to practice transmutation. Okay. And then, of course, you need to tweak and update as needed. Like I was saying, this is a living thing. It's a living draft that is being constantly updated. Now, if any of you want some more help with this, all right, I've got 2 options for you that if you want help from me specifically, okay? The first one is to get my Momentum Method course. The Momentum Method course is about high performance at high speed. It's about how do you get this thing going? How do you get moving with it? How do you build some momentum? How do you, break free from perfectionism? How do you get the rapid prototyping going? How do you adjust on the fly as things change and you get new information? Because a lot of guys, they'll take a first step and then they'll just stop. They'll just, it's like, oh, well, that created a new problem and I don't know, now I'm stressed and overwhelmed and I'm just going to stop. Okay. Or, oh, now there's a lack of certainty, or, oh, my first launch just didn't go good. I'm done. No, like you have to learn how to build and maintain momentum. And so this is a, pretty cheap guide, and it breaks it all down about how you can do a lot of really good work very, very quickly. Now, the second option is you could fill out a coaching application and you could let me become your coach. All right. And this is what I do. You know, I help, like coaching, like the idea of coach, it comes from the old term of stagecoach, which were basically like the horse and buggy version of taxis. So what they did was they move people from point A to point B. That's what they do. Right. And that's what like any coach does, is he moves you from point A to point B. And this is what I'm here to do, particularly for Christian men out there. If you want to be becoming the man that you know God intended you to be, that's your destination. Well, then I'm your coach. All right. I'm the one who, well, I don't know if I'm the only one, but this is what I've been doing. This is what I dedicate my life to. This is what I'm incredibly passionate about. And so I would love to help you. And so all you got to do is drop an application into coaching, and I'll get back to you. Right now, like I was saying, is like I want to be coaching a lot of guys. I want to be really working this system, you know, ironing it all out. And I've got a range of pricing options available right now. I'm more flexible with my coaching packaging than I've been in a long time, because I just want to do a lot of it right now. That's what I'm all fired up about. So if you think you would like me to become your coach, then please submit an application. I would love to work with you. So that's our workshop here for today. I hope you guys got a lot of value out of this. If you did, please please subscribe, you know, follow me on Telegram if you want some more exclusive updates and other workshops. I wasn't even initially planning on putting this on YouTube, but I forgot to record it when I did it live. So, you know, here we are. You know, it's hopefully still very valuable to you. So I would love to hear from you. Hope you got a ton out of it. Ooh, yeah. See you on the next one.